Okay.
Hello?
I can't see you. Oh, I can see you. Karen Saba, welcome to the Trapes and Global on Wheels podcast hour.
Thank you.
Is that how you say your last name?
Yes, Saba.
Okay, Saba.
Yeah.
So, so for listeners that are not as familiar with you, I'm going to read a brief introduction, okay? Karen Saba has more than 15 years of experience providing leadership and expertise in the area of safety and social protection initiatives for various sectors. Working for many non-government organizations, Karen has designed and implemented refugee assistance programs covering lifestyle saving services for refugee settlements in the Middle East. She has conducted numerous trainings to directly empower people with disabilities, including wounded soldiers, and has provided training on inclusive development. As a consultant for the World Bank, she co-drafted the first strategic report on mainstreaming the disability population throughout the Middle East and North Africa. Ms. Karen has worked for the task Karen has worked for the Presidential Task Force on Employment with of Adults and Youth with Disabilities under the Clinton administration. Karen Saba holds a master's degree in international development from American University from Washington, D.C. She speaks Arabic, French, and English fluently. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Of course, of course. So we're going to kick off our first question with, so what is the hardest part about doing disability advocacy work in the Middle East versus the US, since you've done so much advocacy and activism work in that region?
Well, there is a different ways of looking at the questions, and for the one thing is, uh, disability is viewed in different ways around the world.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Middle East, the laws are just started to be drafted, and they are not being drafted because the native population demanded these regulations, but to appease international donors and to comply with the CRPT.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the countries in the Middle East lack the resources to allocate needed to allocate for the rights of people with disabilities. Uh, Whereas in the US, the laws are already there, and these policies were created through a system that implement the policies, and it was a collaboration between the disability community and policy makers and political leaders. So it's different. Even the so it is a different dynamic. And
Mm-hmm.
because the laws in the Middle East are new, therefore it will take a longer time to get it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That is a great response, Karen. So I'm gonna edit this part out, what I'm going to say next, but if you can keep it really short and
Okay.
succinct, that'd be great. Just because even though I edited some questions out, I deleted some questions, there are still a lot of questions, and I'm
Okay.
trying to keep it between 20, 30 minutes. I'm trying
Oh,
to
okay.
increase engagement.
Okay.
And in order to, I think one way to do that is to make these podcast shows shorter and shorter. And I want to make them 20 minutes from
Okay.
here on out. That's
Okay.
going to be super hard to do. Yes, I know, Karen. It's going to be super
I'm
hard to.
so sorry because I looked at two of your
And they
podcast.
are not 20 minutes. I know.
Yes. So I was
Okay, so let's move on to the second question. Are you ready?
but can you understand me?
Yeah, I can understand you.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I think I can understand you right now when we talk casually more
Uh-huh.
than when you're answering that first question even. So I think just relax. Anything you're uncomfortable like answering, anything you feel, even just giving you a little bit of anxiety, let me know. And by the way, I'm the one editing this. So after you answer a question you feel like you didn't do a good job, we can delete that, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Can we start it from the beginning?
We don't need to start from, I mean, if you want to, would that make you feel better?
Well, I was gonna make it a little shorter, but that's okay. That's
Okay,
just
let's just move on to the
okay.
second question.
Okay.
And then if you still feel that way at the end, we can redo that first question,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
Okay, so our second question for you, Karen, is of the 20 countries that you've worked in, right? Which one was easiest to advocate for in terms of fighting for accessibility and opportunities for people with disabilities? Which country was the most difficult?
Well, every country has its strengths and weakness. It all depends on the management and the political will in that country. I cannot say which country is the most is better than the other. Some countries they have the money, but yet they don't understand the right paid concept of people for people with disabilities. Others don't have the money, but they do want to implement laws and regulations for disabled people. So it just depends on the country you are working with and who you are dealing with.
Okay, so if you had to give us an example, a model country in the Middle East, to just to give a vivid example, it doesn't necessarily have to be the most difficult country to advocate for accessibility and opportunities for people with disabilities, but just a country that comes to mind that you can give us a vivid example of.
Well, Iraq was a country that had a lot of foreign aid, and because of the wars, they had a lot of disabled people, and therefore, because investment was right, and there was a lot of people with disabilities, so it was a little easier to empower people and to work in that country. And I also had a great manager that supported the rights of people with disabilities.
And this is Iraq.
Iraq, yes.
Iraq. Okay. And then going on to the next question here, what are the biggest barriers to equal opportunity and access for individuals with disabilities in the Middle East?
I think it's attitudes, attitude of people, attitude of political official, attitude of people with disabilities themselves. How people people with disability view themselves and how the social society view disabled people. So because no one is looking to empower people with disability, so that attitude to empower people. Therefore, people with disabilities are not powered. They are seen as not as productive part of society.
Yeah, I think attitudes definitely play a major part in shaping a person, how they view their, their differences with the majority.
Yes.
So, um,
Not
but in terms of the physical infrastructure and the, tangible opportunities, are they there, or is that lacking due to attitudes, due to negative attitudes of people with disabilities?
Well, I think it's both the physical infrastructure itself because of attitudes, but also the Middle East. Most of the Middle East is very old, like countries like Egypt. You know, it's like 2,000, 3,000 years old. So things are not accessible because it's old. And there is poverty and population over, you know, it's a big populated area. Whereas, countries like Iraq, they have the bombs and all of that, so they are rebuilding the country, and there is a lot of will and advocacy going on to make it more accessible in terms of infrastructure.
Yeah, no, I understand. Um, so I'm just gonna pause here because I keep hearing pounding behind you, and that's really affecting the sound. Do you know if they could stop pounding or what's going on?
I can't hear you.
I said I hear pounding behind you,
Oh, it is my.
and also my voice is echoing back to me, so I don't know how your sound has changed.
Is it better? I don't know.
Let me talk. Oh yeah, that's better. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, are you getting your bathroom remodeled?
No, nothing. I don't hear anything in my house.
Oh,
I
maybe, is it, do you have jewelry on, like a bracelet that's hitting the microphone or anything like that?
no. Maybe I don't know. Hold on. Are you
Okay,
better?
okay, no worries. You're on a computer, right?
Yes.
Do you mind tilting your screen down so that your head is on top more? Oh, that's perfect. Not quite so much, a little bit less, a little bit less.
I am. Yeah, I
That's
didn't.
perfect. That's perfect. Okay,
Okay.
so we're
So
gonna move on.
is that the noise?
No, I don't hear now. I literally heard pounding. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was
Okay.
upstairs. Anyway, so we're gonna move on to sorry about that. So we're gonna move on to the next question. The next question is, how effective do you think the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities has been to date? Um, so I know we talked about the CRPD, right?
Yes.
Earlier, but just thinking, giving more thought to it, how effective has it really been as of current?
Well, it brought a little more awareness in the Middle East about the rights of people with disabilities and how maybe programs should be more inclusive and more how people with disabilities can be mainstream in society. Nonetheless, most many of the regimes of the Middle East have not invested much of their funding toward inclusion and disability rights. Uh, Even the countries that have money, such as the Gulf area, most of the money is still going to rehabilitation and institutional setting. So there is a lot to do ahead.
Mm-hmm. And so next we're going to transition a bit to multilateral, bilateral collaborations with other countries, okay? So how does collaborating effectively with government organizations differ from non-governmental organizations? What is the key to working effectively with them to advance disability rights issues?
Well, of course, you know that most NGOs, when they go to a country, they have to have the clearance and they have to be welcomed by the host countries. So that's the first collaboration. They work together.
Mm-hmm.
But it's most important in that setting, whether it's an NGO or a government organization, to engage the people with disabilities in the development, implementation, and evaluation of all programs for disabled, disabled people. That has not been happening a lot. You don't see many NGOs that hire disabled people, and you don't see a lot of government organizations that hire people with disabilities. So
Mm-hmm.
that's an issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, It's definitely an issue. And again, I think that goes back to attitude and how people view individuals with disabilities and what their skill sets or lack of skill sets are.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think inclusion is, you know, you can't have inclusion without engaging people with disabilities.
Mm.
That's not inclusion, that's just providing services.
Exactly, exactly. So next, so you've been involved on the international front working with disabled people's organizations and governments around the world to advance disability issues. So what is the key to collaborating and working with such a wide network and such a diverse group of people?
You have to be flexible, um, very understanding of the different customs and different ways of doing things. You know, whether it's the Middle Eastern culture, the French culture, the American culture, or the different cultures within a country or within with disabled people themselves, how they view themselves. So you can't assume, you just have to take it very slow and ask why are people doing things the way they are doing it. And once you understand that, then you can go back and tell them, not tell them, help them to do it differently, but don't judge.
Yeah. So be open about the collaboration.
Yes.
and not come in with preconceived notions.
Never, 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 never.
Never, never. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
And don't come in as you understand, as you know it all, because we often don't know what we don't know.
mhm, we don't know what we don't know. That is so true. I think that's an understatement. So, what are your views on how the different disability rights coalitions collaborate together here in the U.S.? If relevant, what can be improved in terms of cohesiveness in and establishing a unified agenda between the different coalitions? You can feel free to speak on the DMV area, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, if you like.
Well, I think I am a development practitioner, so I looked at everything in terms of economic and money and all of that. So one of the difficulties in having a cohesive disability coalition is the way entitlements are allocated. We have the veterans, the disabled veterans system, we have the developmentally disabled system, DD, and then we have the social security system. All of those entitlements are different, and we are always competing for various funds to increase or decrease. So, and it's because of that, we also have the difference in perception. I mean, why do we have to have the Para-Olympic and the Special Olympic? So, in a way, it's only when we all work together and come to see our commonality instead of our difference that we will have a more stronger disability community.
Yeah, that's definitely right. I agree with you. If we can all come together and work on and have a unified agenda, but I know that especially in this day and age, that is so difficult, it seems.
Yeah, and politicians not don't make it easier. I mean, they order, oh, we have to help the wounded soldiers, which is all fine, but you have to help all disabled people. So that's an issue we have to address.
Yeah, that's right. So, with addressing disability issues internationally, what specific measures can we take to include people of all types of disabilities from, both cross disability organizations and cross age organizations? For example, children, seniors, individuals with intellectual disabilities or psychiatric disabilities. How can we include all of those people and groups in the disability rights movement, both domestically and internationally?
I have said it so many times. I am an American U.S. citizen. I don't worry about what other countries are doing. I just worry about how we as Americans conduct ourselves abroad and locally and nationally. I think one of our strongest points is the Rehab Act, which said all services and programs have to be acceptable and accommodated to people with disabilities. They have specific measurement and regulations to do that. The Rehab Act has to become part of our international agenda, and it has to be present in all our foreign aid programs. Once that is done, all our money, all our programs abroad will be also available to disabled people, and other countries will begin to see how we do things, and they will come to do the same thing. So we will lead by example.
Yeah, I think leading by example in this very interconnected world is very crucial, especially when we're, the US being the leader in many ways, being the leader of the many people, let me rephrase that. Many people see the US as a leader or turn to the US when they see best practices, right? And so when those people look to the US to set best practices, we want to be the best example and model what we are trying to convey and then implement. And that's exactly what you were just saying. And so I totally agree with you as well. And so moving on to the next question here. Do we have a way to ensure that conditions are created to make infrastructure accessible when distributing US foreign aid to the various countries? How has inclusion improved in terms of foreign aid resources? I know you just touched upon it a little bit in that previous question.
If we want to find a way to do it, we would do it. Okay? This is the United States. We do what we wanted. What in the end, the people speak and they usually come up with solution to whatever issues they have. Uh, there are ways to put the measurement to make sure inclusion is being done, but we have to have leadership, political will, and lots of technical assistance, not just in Washington, but around in every mission, embassy, and so on region. There is no excuse for wanting anything and not making it accessible. It's just common sense. The question should not be about building a ramp, ladders, and steps. The question should be, why should we build steps when more people are going to be able to use ramps? Steps, steps are inaccessible for everybody, but ramps are accessible for everybody. So we have to reframe our dialect.
That
Yeah. In terms of economic and funding,
That's such a good point. I was thinking, I often think about that too. Ramps are accessible for everybody, and stairs are not accessible for so many groups of people. And why are there not more ramps? Just change the way that we think and why certain things are more prevalent than others when they're in fact less useful. And so moving on to travel here, I know you've traveled a great deal. You've been to so many countries. What were some of your biggest challenges while traveling? Um, I know you don't use a wheelchair, but just as a person who has cerebral palsy and the challenges that comes with that.
I think bathtubs. I go to countries and on hotel rooms and these bathtubs. They are, hi, how can I get into the bathtub? How can I get out of the bathtub? How can I stay safe? Uh, um, I went to a country, I did a training in a country. I was there only for 3 days, didn't know anyone. I booked the room online. I got an accessible room and it said it had a wheelchair shower, chairs, and so on. So I was happy to have that room. Unfortunately, when I used the shower, the water came, flooded the whole bathroom, and it was so slippery to come out of the bathroom. So the challenge is always to find in the bathroom and taking a shower.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So the water just overflowed on the floor, and when you came out, it was very slippery.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I had to use my towel on the floor, and uh, so now I always carry like a bath rock with me and slippers in my handbag, so that nothing will happen like this.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a good idea. So, so that's one solution plan. That was our follow-up question is, what are some solution plans you have in mind to make traveling more accessible for individuals with disabilities? So, in regards to, I was thinking earlier, especially for wheelchair users, because that's a large part of our focus here at Trips and Global on Wheels. And but you can talk about it more broadly as well.
Well, I mean, I think in many countries, whether because of economy or because the country is old or because of if anything else, the fact is, the reality is, you're not gonna find a lot of accessible settings. So you have to be flexible, you have to be innovative, and you have to find a way to communicate with your host or whatever. If you're in a guest house, a hotel, or whatever, you have to ask and talk about how they can accommodate you and find a way to get what you need to be done. So for me, once I went to the bathroom, once I got out of the shower and all of that and got dressed, I went down to the
To the front
hotel,
desk?
to the front desk, and they came and they fixed it. People are willing to help if you ask them for help, but you have to know how to ask what help you need. So,
Exactly. So Yeah, people for the most part are willing to help and just make sure to speak up as you're emphasizing here and voice your opinions and share the challenges, share the experience that just happened.
I mean,
And
and you can do it in a more diplomatic way so that they don't feel embarrassed or they don't feel embarrassed more or less so that they are more cooperating with you.
exactly. So, thinking into the future now, what progress have you seen? Thinking into the future and into the past here, um, what major progress have you seen in your lifetime in terms of inclusion for people with disabilities in all facets of society, and what still needs to be improved?
I think more people are aware that disabled people are should be part of the society. There is more awareness about different disabilities such as autism and so on around the globe. But the perception and the attitude about different disabilities is still prevalent. prevalent. We are still not seen as productive members of society. And once that happens, it will take a long time to happen, but it needs to happen. So
Mhm. It does. It should have happened a long time ago, if not already. So, our last question here, what are some of the biggest challenges facing individuals with disabilities internationally? I know you've had a great deal of experience working internationally, especially the Middle East. What can be done to address these challenges by current disability rights leaders?
I think the most important thing to do is to formulate peer support and to empower people with disabilities. Disabled people overseas are not empowered. They just go with the flow. They don't ask questions. They don't challenge
Status
leaders.
quo
leaders.
leaders.
So they have to be empowered and connected. Some of them are isolated. So we have to focus on self-help groups and peer support groups, and this is why your 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 website and the work you're doing is very important because it shows other people in other countries how to empower themselves.
Thank you so much. And speaking of empowerment, I am empowered by you and all of your great work. I know there are challenges, whether that be communication or physical barriers with bathtubs and other things. Um, with every kind of disability, there are different sets of challenges and interesting experiences that come with it. And I really admire how you've not let anything um, get in the way, basically, and you just keep plowing forward. So I think that's wonderful. I hope to meet you in person. I know you're around the DMV area, outside of the metro line, unfortunately, but it's been so wonderful getting to speak to you today. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I'm going to end the recording, okay?